Yola Tango, This Stupid World, album review, let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this latest album from New Jersey, indie rock legends Yola Tango, celebrating 40 years together as a band. They are legends for a reason. If you are into indie rock of whatever kind, and its numerous different flavors, you know who the hell they are, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, growing up, it took me a really long time to get into their music. It just wasn't the sort of indie that I was interested in when I was getting into indie rock. And by the time that I was interested, there had released, God, so much material. But eventually I did get around to it in my, I don't know, my mid-20s or so. And I took to it very fast. But as far as their early work goes, I quickly really clinged to it, and I was completely enamored with it. The rigorous folk rock of Ride the Tiger, the much more streamlined new wave Hot Dogs, and the rowdy and noisy President Yola Tengo. These were great, and by the time they hit their basically masterpiece Fake Book in 1990, they were a well-oiled machine. And as far as the rest of their discography goes, I mean, I've loved a lot of it. I've also not been into a lot of it. May I Sing With Me? I've always thought it was a little overly ambitious, and I've never been really that into it. Painful has always been one of my favorite albums in their discography, hands down, and Electro Pura is noisy and, I don't know, I always thought it was really streamlined. And I Can Hear Our Hearts Beating as one. Honestly, it deserves all the praise it gets. But that leads me to the 2000s, which is where things really started to get a lot more iffy for me. It showed the band really branching out, trying a lot more things, especially in the dreamier and shoegazier realm. While people loved And Nothing Turned It Inside Out, it's actually, I don't know, just one of my least favorite albums in their discography. I get it. I get why people love it. It's not for me. It's way too lackadaisical. And Summer Sun, I thought the band was at their worst. But I have always been a big fan of I Am Not Afraid of You and I Will Beat Your Ass. And I was completely thrown off by how much I loved albums like Fade and stuff like that there. I thought it was a great reinvention for the band. But that leads me to the last few years. But There's a Riot Going On. My lord, this album is god-awful. It is so boring. And speaking of boring, we have amnesia. Sometimes I can't get through the album. Which leads me to this new album. It is, I don't even know what album we're up to, honestly. They have released so much material over the years. Leading up to this album, I did like the singles. It showed them, you know, a little amped up, a little energetic, so much more so than usual over the last, decade or so. And overall, I think it's a pretty solid album. This album starts off with Sinatra Drive Breakdown, and I give credit where it's due. This is a great intro. It's upbeat, it's got that classic Yola Tango sound. It shows them really riding a groove here. It's noisy, and I can't remember the last time I heard them playing with so much energy. And I know that people really love their dreamier, more shoegazy side of the last decade or so, but this is what I have always enjoyed from Yola Tango, and I'm sticking to it. This track as a whole is done right. This is very much so a throwback, a callback to their early, more noisy and, I don't know, more spontaneous days, and it's done with a lot of energy, and more importantly, a great attention to detail. Fans of Yola Tango from any era will be happy, and it really justifies its 7.5-minute runtime. A lot of the same goes for Fallout. I think this track is even better. It's once again a very lo-fi, very old-school sounding indie rock track. Fans of Yola Tango from the early 90s, you're going to want to hear this. It's got a great rip. It's got some really memorable vocals as well. It is a little straightforward, but I will say this. Hearing them try so much over their career, it's just nice to hear them return to their roots. Aselestine, on the other hand, is a really sweet, tender ballad, and it's done really nicely. It's breezy, it's charming, it's incredibly likable. It also has, a sense of youthfulness and just innocence that I just really cling to. And it's odd because this is certainly far from what we get on the rest of the album. It's been a noisy and chaotic and spontaneous album so far. Then we get this, but it's done really well. But here's my issue here. While the bulk of this material here actually does my heart some good, it makes me happy to hear, my biggest issue with this album is that I feel like at the end of the day, I haven't exactly learned anything new from Yola Tango. Take, for example, tonight's episode. Things go from really solid as a tasteful throwback really quickly to just, rehashed material. This sounds like the most average Yola Tango track from one of their more middle-of-the-road albums. Like, this, to me, sounds like a track that came off one of their worst albums, but like was thrown in as like, I don't know, like a gift for old school fans. The instrumental's very forgettable, and from a distance it does sound like a Yo La Tengo track, but look a little deeper, it's just not very exciting. Nothing about it really pops. It's also one of the less melodic tracks here. I feel a lot of the same way on Until It Happens. This has been a very stripped down, almost lo-fi album at times. And then I hear this track, and honest to God, I would kill for a crunchier riff right now, or a memorable hook. I mean, it's colorful, and it's fun at times, but compared to the rest of the album, man, this is easily the least interested that I've been. An apology letter. Once again, it's just so average. You know, you get the feeling that Yo La Tengo on so much of this album is playing from the heart and putting out good material, and then I hear this. This is so incredibly inoffensive. It doesn't sway me either way. This doesn't sound like a band that's been together for 40 years. They do salvage this album, though, with a couple of late experimental tracks that I did not expect. Brian Capers might be the best track here. I love how noisy and joyous and full of life this track is. There's a spontaneity to it as well that I love. And I really have to double down on it. This track is chaotic. Like, this sounds like a live jam that they would have whipped out at a live show, and it went over incredible. The wild riff, the constant soloing, just how light and airy it is, it's great. It's honestly what I showed up for. This Stupid World, this album's title track, is really good too. This one takes a real sharp turn for the drone and ambient, but I will argue that this track here is more interesting than anything on their last album. Now, it does take some time to get going. It is a little shoegazy. If these are things you don't like from Yo La Tengo, don't expect to like this. But while it's not the most eventful track here, everything kind of works. It's not bloated. It's not full of itself. They could clearly still work a jam still and make it sound great. And Miles Away as a finale is the weirdest and most far out track here. I honestly wish we heard more tracks like this. This track is a hazy experimental cut with, God, a ton of layers. But it's also easily the most kaleidoscopic and euphoric track here. It feels like a fitting end. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it proves that Yo La Tengo are still who the hell they are. I'm on the fence on this album because, you know, it's only 9 tracks, and my issue is, like, when this album gets bad, it gets so forgettable so fast, and I feel like they play it safe so much on those tracks that it brings it down quite a bit. But if you're a fan of Yo La Tengo from any generation, there's probably going to be something that you'll enjoy on here. The energy is certainly here. The noisy spontaneity is certainly here. They can still whip out some serious experiments and make them sound great. There is a lot to like here. I don't know what the issue is for me. Maybe if they pared it down a little bit, maybe if some of those tracks were a little bit more inspired, because they do take up a bulk of this album. But still, there's a very solid, very good album from Yo La Tengo late into their career, and I'm happy that they can pull this off still, and fans of any generation will probably find something on here to enjoy. I'm feeling a light 7 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.